Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to Wingate Solutions. I hope you're doing well. Today's video has been by far my most requested video, and that is how I paint my rifles. All right, let's get into it. All right, guys, I'm gonna do a close-up of some of the stuff that I use to paint my rifles, and then we'll get into it because I don't want to spend too much time doing this or being redundant or saying things that everyone else already knows or is pretty obvious. But I've been doing this a long time. I've been painting rifles for like over a decade and using rattle can way longer than that since I was a kid. And so I have a little bit of knowledge, tips and tricks and experience on what works, what doesn't work. It really is easy, but there is things you can mess up. Anyway, I recommend using gloves of some sort, not only to keep the paint off your hands because it's annoying to clean off. A lot of times you have to use chemicals or let it wear off over time, but also so you don't get the oil from your skin onto the work surface that you're going to paint. So rubber gloves of some sort, good idea. Blue painter's tape, it's what we're going to use, obviously, to paint off or tape off things we don't want painted, such as lenses and that sort of thing. We'll get into that in a second. I'm a big fan of wearing a mask. So I've been doing this a long time. I probably spent way too many years not wearing any type of mask when painting. And I can only imagine how much this crap I've breathed in since I was a kid. So dad advice, wear a mask of some sort. This is actually a time in our lives that a mask is actually probably pretty relevant and actually will protect your health. You know what I'm saying? So I recommend some kind of mask. It doesn't have to be like a special paint mask like this, as long as it's some kind of mask that'll keep those particulates from getting in your lungs, because it's nasty stuff. But at least do it outside, well-ventilated area, guys. All right. The actual fabrics that I use. This is an example of one I've used for a long time. And it's kind of like the secret or like the real way that I get the cool texture on my guns. It's just fabric from like Joann's fabric store. Take your wife, your girlfriend in there so you don't feel as awkward rummaging through like the women's wedding fabrics, because that's literally what this is. Go over to that section. It's like usually like lace type fabrics. It's hit or miss what type you're going to find. Like I couldn't find this one again when I went last time, but something that has really random holes and patterns to it will look really cool. So this one is really like stiff because I've used some of these pieces forever and they're just like coated in fabric. So that's why I moved on to something new. So here's a better example of what it'll look like from the store. Color is obviously irrelevant because we're repainting it, but it's just a random fabric and you can tell it has like leaves or like flowers on it. And you won't see that come through in the paint job, but it will give a really cool texture. So believe me, it'll look cool. But yeah, go to Joann's, go somewhere. This literally is the same as the laundry bag method. You're just adding different texture, and the way I paint might be a little different. It's real easy, which we'll get into. So yeah, that's key. I mean, you can also do with stencils. You can do pine branches. You can do foliage of whatever's in your area. That'll work too. It really doesn't have to be overly complicated. This is just what I use. All right, we're going to get into the paints a little bit, and I'm not sure which ones I'm going to use for this build yet, so stay with me on that. But Rust-Oleum, right? They have their actual camouflage series. So does Krylon. They work great, and most of you are going to be able to get those at the store, either Lowe's or Home Depot or a hardware store near you. Get the different colors. You're really going to want to use minimally 3 colors for this. I would recommend more. 4 is probably a good number, even more. We're going to use a bunch. But yeah, the Rust-Oleum colors, they're really flat, and the Krylon, they're really flat, and that's the key. Don't use anything that's satin. Don't use anything that's gloss. Don't use anything that's going to have a sheen. And even though it says satin or matte, it may not actually be flat. So that's just something to think about. I try to find flat colors. So I'm going to be using Airvo today. Unfortunately, it's kind of a tease because I don't think they even make this anymore. And if they, I'm pretty sure they don't. But it's also very hard to find. Even if you can find it in stock anywhere, it might be like one last color they have. Luckily for me, I've had a bunch for years, so I have a few extra cans of a few different colors, and I'm going to be using it. You can still find colors that are semi-equivalent to that, with the exceptions of some of the earth yellow and some of the other colors we'll get into in a second. I think Rapco is another brand that a lot of guys are using. I don't have experience with them, but they seem to have a lot of colors as well. All right, here's an area that is kind of challenging to find colors, and that is these more red or orange earth tones. Most people think of camouflage as being just browns and greens, maybe some black here and there and tans. But in reality, there's a lot of colors outside. Obviously, depending on where you live, but there's a lot of oranges, especially if you live anywhere where there's a lot of fallen pine branches, pine needles rather. In the fall, everything's orange near me. There's a lot of colors out there, more than just green and brown. So I'm a big fan of adding some like more earth red tones. It's kind of cool if you think of like Alpenflage. I think it's was it Swiss? Someone correct me if I'm wrong there. That camo has a lot of red in it, and it looks crazy until you actually see it work out in its natural environment. Stuff's pretty awesome. So anyway, I'm a big fan of adding some other oranges and tones like that. So this is literally just a red primer from Krylon, very flat. It works as an accent color, and we'll get into that. I'll definitely use it. If you don't believe me, maybe you'll see as we do it. This is one that everybody should be able to get. It's a newer one that I've been using. It's kind of a light orange, almost a little too light, but it works again as an accent. And that's going to be this terracotta color by Bear Premium. It's flat. They sell these, I believe, at Home Depot. Maybe check that out if you think you like the color. And then this guy is kind of a really unique one. I got this at some surplus store or something. It's flat enough. I have to use this sparingly because it definitely comes out a little thicker, but it's literally like a roof shingle paint. Again, has more of an orange tone. So we'll experiment with that, see how it ends up. And for you guys, most of you are going to want to use just like the Krylon and Rust-Oleum. And that's awesome. I just want to give you guys kind of a taste of what I'm using today. All right, guys, quick tip before we move on. Again, I have a million things I've been doing over the years, so I take it for granted. So I figured I'm going to bring some of it up as I go. If you're watching this video, you probably don't mind that it's going to be a little bit longer format. And if you do, I apologize, but I want guys to be confident doing this sort of thing. So I'm a big fan of warming my cans up before I use them. So whether you leave them out in the warm sun for a little bit, let the actual cans get warm, or gently heat them up with like a hair dryer. You just gotta be careful because these things are flammable, so you don't want to be like literally scorching these cans to the point of them bursting, but you want to have a gentle warmth to them. You can also fill like a pot on the stove with some water, heat it up a little bit so that it's nice and warm, put the cans in that, let them be warmed up that way. That works as well. Don't actually heat the cans up on the stove though, just heat the water. But that'll help them spray a little better. Obviously, shake them up. You're using a bunch of cans like this. It's a pain to shake all these up for a minute, but it helps. Make sure you do that. That way you're not going to get nozzles that are spurting instead of spraying nice and even. And also take care of your nozzles. I'm not going to show you guys everything because it'll take way too long, but I'm a big fan of keeping your nozzles clean. When you're done, spray them out. If they're a type of can that can be sprayed upside down to clear them, do that. If it's one of these cans that'll spray upside down, you can't really do that. So I'll take the nozzles off and I will spray something like brake cleaner through the nozzle, let it dry, then put it back on the can. That way, next time I go to use them, it's not all dried up in the nozzle. The Airvo cans are known for that. They have crappy nozzles. You got to take care of them if you want them to keep working. Anyway, quick tip on that. Warm your cans up. Warm your actual surface to be painted up as well, especially if you're doing this in any colder environment. You want to heat your actual rifle up with just a hair dryer or a heat gun. That's going to help you help the paint rather adhere a little better, dry a little better. All right, guys, here's the rifle we're going to paint today. It's just a parts gun. I had a bunch of parts laying around, so I figured I would throw them into rifle. Had this upper already, and I just got a lower just to complete this build so I can do a good paint job for you guys and just have a spare parts build. So let's talk prep. Preps, I want to say preps everything, but it really depends what you're trying to get out of it. If you want to have the best finish possible, even though it's rattle can, it is going to wear. But if you want it to be the best finish that it can be, you're going to want to prep it well. And that I'm not going to recommend at all doing any type of sanding, anything like that. This anodizing and this plastic on these guns holds paint pretty well already. You just want to make sure it's not greasy or oily or have any gun oil on anything. You want to make sure everything is degreased. So if you had a base rifle with no paint, I would go ahead and just wipe the whole thing down with a rag that has acetone or denatured alcohol on it, something like that, to get all the grease out of the little spots and nooks and crannies. Just because The paint will not dry on those greasy surfaces. It'll stay tacky until it wipes off. And that's the other side of this. Some guys don't really care. They just want to throw paint on a rifle and kind of just let it get worn. That's cool too. So that's where prep is up to you. As much as you feel like prepping, you can like just throw paint on and just see what happens. It's not a big deal. It's going to wear off. That looks cool. Some guys are into that. So for me, if I'm going to be painting a rifle that's already painted, I'm not going to do as much prep because it's already painted. I don't really care. I might do a light wipe down with acetone or denatured alcohol on a rag, very light, because if you do it too much, it'll actually soften up the paint that's on there, and then that's not good. So I'm going to wipe it down, let it dry, and then for me, I tape everything off I don't want paint on. So that's going to be lenses, front and back, and lenses of lights. The rubber tail cap, I don't really care. Sometimes I'll tape that over, sometimes I won't. I don't care about getting paint on triggers. Some guys do. I don't care about getting paint on buffer tubes. I have mine all the way extended anyway, and even if I didn't, I'd still paint it. But if you don't want that painted, just collapse the stock, no big deal. I will throw a random mag in the gun to kind of block that magazine well, and then you have a mag that's painted, which is pretty cool too. That's it. So muzzle devices, something like this A2, I don't bother taping over. I'm just not going to be spraying like a gallon of paint down the muzzle, right? Not a big deal. If I am doing a suppressor mount, I'm going to tape that off. Anything that actually has to have something mount to it. Other than that, I'm not taping anything else. If you have rubber on your butt pad of your stock, either remove it or tape that, or just let it get painted. It'll wear off on its own. Grips, I throw A2s on because I like to use the rubberized Magpul K2 Plus grips. Those you don't want to paint. And again, you could, but it's going to be kind of messy and it's going to wear off and kind of be funky. So it's better just to leave those unpainted. So I throw an A2 on. I will paint the whole rifle and then I'll swap on the rubber grip when I am done. That kind of just makes it easier. I think that's it. All right, guys, before I get started with the base coat, and I'll change up angles, give you guys some more closer views as we go. Try to keep it a little interesting. I'm going to start out by just warming up the rifle. I use a heat gun. As you can tell, I've used this thing forever. It's pretty gnarly. You don't have to do this, especially if you're painting on a warm day. Let it out in the sun for a bit. You really don't have to go that far either. Just what I do. Again, depending on the level of prep you want to do. You really can't mess it up unless you're really shooting for perfection. All right, guys, I'll get a base coat going in a second. This is going to be a little longer format. Hopefully you guys don't mind. I'll do another paint job video in the future where I just kind of get after it. I figured I want to kind of give you guys tips and tricks, things that work for me. So you don't have to do any of this prep work, right? You can just tape off the lenses and then paint. Degreasing, doing all that prep work is just going to add to the finished product, especially if there's nooks and crannies that you had oil, that sort of thing. Because it's annoying when you paint a rifle and just doesn't dry. It's like a week later and it's still tacky. And on that, different paints will have different cure times. All these ones I'm using, they work well enough together. Like it's not like stacking of things like that. They're going to mess up the finish. But some of them do have varying dry times. So like I like to paint it and then stick it somewhere and forget it for a few days. I don't like to mess around. You can paint it and go right to using it. It is going to wear off fast that way. There is cure time if you're looking, again, to get that nicely finished product and then let it just wear naturally on its own. If you want that, paint it and then put it somewhere. Put it in the safe, hang it up in the garage, wherever you feel safe doing or comfortable leaving your rifle. Leave it there to dry. Some guys will bake them. I don't do that. I'll use the heat gun as like a flash cure, and then I let it sit for like 2 days or longer. And if it's still tacky to the touch after a couple days, I'll give it another day or two. But if you don't degrease it at all, you're going to have longer time of it being tacky. Makes sense? All right, I'm gonna throw my mask on, hopefully not mess the audio up. And I'm gonna start with just a tan Rust-Oleum base coat. Real quick base coats, right? I know you guys want to hear me talk more instead of pain. It doesn't matter. Guys get lost in the weeds with you have to have a light base coat and then go darker from there. Other guys will say the opposite. In my experience, it doesn't matter. Especially if you're just trying to change the tone of your rifle and have a cool looking painted rifle. Now, if you're really trying to make it exactly blend in with your environment. There might be a little more science or process to it. But at the end of the day, just having a rifle that's not black is key, right? And believe me, this thing will still blend in like crazy when we're done. It should be organic, natural. Don't get too lost in having to do it a specific way. I'm going to do this very random. You guys are going to see how it comes out. I have no idea, but I'm pretty confident it's going to look cool. But I'm going to start with that tan, and then I'm going to add a few other colors, and then I'll start doing that pattern, and it's going to look pretty crazy by the time we're done. I already shook these guys up, but it doesn't hurt to give them a shake as you're going. Hopefully you hear me. With anything, light coat, right? You don't need to glob this on. I'm not looking for every square inch of this to be covered in that uniform khaki color. I just want a base coat, and lighter's better. You're going to cover up other areas with the other colors as you go. So don't get too crazy about having a really solid base. You're just getting a base coat. Do it nice and simple. Follow directions on the can. You don't want to be too close. You don't want to stay in one area long. You want sweeping motions. It's real easy, but you do kind of get a knack for it as you go. All right, that's looking pretty good. That's actually a little bit heavier of a coat than I needed. But again, you can't really mess it up unless you're putting it on so thick that it's dripping and running everywhere. Another thing, you can see I was changing angles too, right? It's easy to see it from just this angle. I'm kind of above a lot of angles. And if I just spray like this down, I'm going to miss all the undersides of everything. And that's kind of a pro con of doing the hanging method like I'm doing, is it's going to be a lot easier for me to get around the whole rifle as long as I'm making sure to get from underneath. I don't have to worry about flipping it on cardboard or anything like that. But it's going to be more challenging to do it like this, because when I get to hanging the net, it'll be a little more awkward fighting gravity to hold the net up as far as where it's draping. Not a big deal. So pros and cons, if you want to hang your rifle or if you want to do it on like a piece of cardboard. I like to do this because even though it's a little more annoying to use the fabric once we get to that stage, I like the finished product rather than putting it on cardboard, doing one side and then flipping it over doing the other, because then you have a tendency to have premature like high spots or wear spots or fingerprints, things. And again, doesn't matter if you don't really mind that. But if you're trying to get a nice finished look to at least start out before it gets worn down, this is a little nicer. If I'm just doing a touch-up paint job on another rifle area of a paint job on, yeah, I'll just throw it on a piece of cardboard out in the yard and touch up areas, kind of give it a quick and dirty paint job, and I don't care as much. So just something to think about. I like kind of giving you guys both perspectives on that. All right, here's where we're going to get kind of weird. I'm going to use these two air bows. Again, I know most of you guys can't get these. Not a big deal. Don't focus too much on the colors I'm using. Focus more on the mindset of the color or the pattern behind it. You can figure out whatever colors you want to use. I'm just using a bunch to kind of show you guys. So I'm using an earth yellow and I'm using this field drab. Probably one of the coolest colors ever. It's basically a coyote / green. It's kind of neat. I am going to get these shaken up off camera a little bit. All right. I'm going to now add some random other colors to this. Now here's, you can get lost in the weeds here. You could literally start doing the pattern, I'm going to show you guys in a minute, right from here. Or you can add stripes. You can add other shapes out of like cardboard cutouts if you want to add other colors to it first before the pattern. The sky's the limit. I'm going to do just some big chunks of this yellow and this field drab as like a secondary base coat. And then we're going to go from there with the pattern. It'll look really cool. So I'm going to start with this earth yellow. Really unique color. And I have found a few other companies, kind of like specialty spray cans, that have flat like yellows like this. If I figure it out, I'll let you guys know, because it is a really cool color. It's kind of unfortunate that you can't get this anymore. All right, let's do this thing. Again, I'm just going to get kind of organic and random. I'm just going to start hitting it. And as you see, if you guys are new to spray paints, go past the object, and when you start before it. So don't start here and end here. You're going to end up with streaking and globs. So make sure you actually go past it. Cool? All right. And now some field drab, and then I'll change up angles for you guys so it's not as boring, you're not as far away. For the next step, that's another thing I forgot to mention. I failed to do it as well till now. I like to, hopefully you guys can hear me. I like to test the paint out on like a piece of cardboard, or out here I'm in the woods, I can do it on like a stick or something. Make sure it's actually coming out clean out of the nozzle. Like basically use it for a second and then make sure it works. And then put it on your gun, because you can have a bunch of like the, whatever these are made up with, all the stuff that's in there, it could be no color, and you can just get a bunch of like goo that comes out right in aerosol form, and that'll mess your finish up. Also, if the nozzle's clogged and it starts spritzing big clumps, you don't want that either. Again, depends what you're trying to get out of it. All right. All right, that's going to do it for my base coat. We're going to move on. All right, so the cool thing about this method is you can't mess it up. If you don't like how it is in the moment, you can go over it with more colors. Or if I put a color on, I'm like, yeah, I put too much on, not a big deal. I can go back over with other colors. Or if I cover up one of the colors I really wanted to have be more prominent, I can add it at the end. It really is stupid easy. Once you figure this out, again, it's kind of based on whatever fabric you get. There's no like right answer to this. Just get something. But this is what I found works really well. All right, I took my mask off for a minute. You guys don't care. I'm just saying, it's nice and breezy out here. I want to be able to talk to you guys. Painting one rifle is not going to kill me, just so you know. So I'm going to test this green out. Nope. All right, perfect example. So nozzle's clogged, nozzle's dead. Airvo had this happen a lot for me. I'm going to just take this one off, put it aside. I'll try to clean this one later, and I'm going to put one of the other Airvo ones on, see if that works, and test it again. If it's still clogged, then I'm just going to abandon this color. All right, that works. It has a little weird stream to it, so I'm not going to use this one too heavily. But all right, I'm just going to drape this wherever. It does not have to be pulled tight against the rifle. The tighter you have it in areas, the more defined your paint's going to look. And also, the longer you have the can spraying in that particular area, the more defined pattern you're going to get. It really comes with practice. If you guys want to do this, I know I keep stopping. If you want to do this, go ahead and try it on like a piece of plywood or something that really doesn't matter, a Nerf gun, something like that first, to get a feel for it. But it's really stupid easy. And the other thing I'm not doing, which I'm going to do after this step, is flash curing. Again, you don't have to, but I'm going to do it just because it kind of helps everything dry as I go. That was a light misting, right? And you'll see the more I do this, the more it'll turn into a really cool paint job. And I'm just going to be really random, all right? Because everything organic, everything out in Mother Nature, you know, is organic for the most part. And then when there are patterns, there's even a lot of randomness to patterns. I don't know. We make a lot of happy mistakes here, and they always turn out really cool. You're not going to start to see the paint job really come together until you start getting a few more colors in. And you guys can start to see a little more awkward to do this hanging, but it's still worth it to me. I like doing them hanging. It's just easier for me this way. But absolutely do it however you want. Hopefully I'm not spraying my camera lens right now. By the end of the video, you're not going to be able to see anything. That would suck. All right, so almost done with this coat. Again, it's really random. Pick the colors you want to go with. Go from there. Drape it over the areas that are like this. That's real easy. The hard to reach spots, which would be like below the mag, behind the grip, trigger guard area, you kind of figure it out. It's not anything you guys can't figure out. Like right now, I'm just gonna put it down there, spray it. Same with under the stock. Doesn't matter because you're gonna be adding a bunch more colors. I'm kind of doing this nice and slow, not for you guys, but really can be done a lot faster. Now, it's nice to have a few different cuttings of this and go between them, like get a fresh piece every other color or so that you're not gonna end up having this thing be all gunky by the end, and then you're getting like random paint stuck to your gun. All right, so that's a light coat of green. I don't really want too much green on this guy. I know it's summertime. A lot of guys are gonna say I should do a lot more green. I like to do just a general paint job that is going to work throughout the year for me. And that's just going to be neutral tones. A lot of the colors I'm using. If you wanted to actually touch up between seasons, you definitely could. Not a big deal. I'm just not the type to do that. All right, moving on. So I'm going to finish up with dark green and dark brown just because I'm going to use some of these more like vibrant colors in the middle. I usually don't like to finish with these colors like as being the most prominent color. I like them to be kind of in the background. So I'll use like the oranges, the red now, and then I'll finish up with like the green, the brown, and then I can go back with that coyote at the end if I feel like it. That's probably the way I'm going to run this one today. So all right, let's do that. Hopefully this angle is looking pretty cool for you guys. I'll kind of adjust it as we go if needed. And this is a very odd color, but I tend to like it. I just don't want to overdo this one. It's a little bright. Especially with that light yellow I already used. But we'll see. Trust the science, guys, you know? Yeah, I'm just doing small sweeping passes. Nothing crazy. Just gently putting this cloth up against it. Kind of finding spots that don't have any pattern, but also overlapping ones I already did. And that's what's going to get that more of that three-dimensional effect that looks so cool on these. And I want some areas to kind of be more defined. I want other areas to be blurry. And that's what's going to keep it more realistic looking by the end. I'm going to get down here and kind of add some in a few spots that I didn't do. A couple spots are a little more awkward. Like I said, you can wrap it around if need be. That's another reason to do that flash cure. You're less likely to smudge all your paint off. But yeah, this is a readily available color you guys can go get right now. Stuck in a tree. That's why I'm showing you a couple of these. I know I apologize if some of these are unobtainium for you guys, but all right, cool. So now we have a really light looking rifle. That's where we're at right now. And that's okay. Like I said, at any time you can darken it up, change it. Now I'm going to use that really funky orange. That's actually roof paint. Not a fan of really globbing this guy on, but it turns out pretty cool. So, and you guys probably can't even see most of this. There you go. Now this is one that gets a little more definition. Another reason why I don't want to finish with this color. And I know some of you guys are probably thinking, like, why would you ever use these colors for camo? But believe me, there's a lot more colors out there if you pay attention than you realize. But it just looks cool. Like you definitely want to paint job that you enjoy too. Like it's not all doom and gloom end of the world, guys. Some of this stuff can just be cool, and it does have practical use. Like I think this looks cool. I also think it blends in really well a lot of the year. And for me, blending in the summer is easy because there's so much foliage, right? You don't, unless, like, again, I'm not gonna get too much into context. We'll get into a little bit as I go of like more reasons why I paint. But if you're trying to actually use these to blend in, hunting, whatever, like I said, doesn't matter. Whatever reason you want to do this, whether it's just cool and you like it. But if you want to actually blend in, have this be a functional camo pattern, this time of year, the natural vegetation is your camo. Like it's so thick. Unless you're 3 feet from somebody, which is very unrealistic. Like I don't care how painted your rifle is or you are, I'm gonna see you, unless I'm like really not looking for you at all. But in general, just having that toned rifle, it's gonna blend in. So for more fall winter times when the foliage is down, that's when having that colors that really blend in at that time of the year is gonna be that much more practical. That's why guys in the military would paint their rifles before ops based on the terrain they're in, which is cool. For guys like you and me, we're probably not doing that as often. Like I'm just painting a rifle, I'm using it, having fun with it. And then if I want to touch it up for a specific purpose, I can. Anyway, hopefully you can kind of see it's kind of starting to come together. I'll do a close up in a second. That color looks really cool, in my opinion. Move on to the next one. All right, now I'm going to use that red primer. This is a very common color you can get, just red oxide primer. I like it. Again, it's kind of like that Alpenflage red for me. This one is very dark, so I use it sparingly. It's not a color I want like crazy on my guns. And actually, like that orange I just used probably would be more than enough, just like that. This color is just one I had. I'm really just doing this random, and that's how every one of my paint jobs is. There's not a lot of, this can's almost dead. There we go. There's not a lot of prep behind what I'm actually going to do with these. Kind of like the rest of my videos, you know, off the cuff. But the cool thing is, you're going to end up with whatever you want. I mean, if you're like crazy OCD about your paint job, you're going to be here painting for 6 hours. Because some guys, I think, have the trouble realizing when they should call it done. And I get that. It's easy to just be like, I'm just going to keep adding colors. Eventually, you got to call it quits and say, I think I have enough. That's looking pretty cool. All right, now we're done with the kind of the funky colors and move on to some normal ones. Since you're really going to draw it, clean it up. I'm not going to use this guy. You guys are just going to get a couple colors at the store. The 4 main colors of the Rust-Oleums, which would be like, well, they have 2 tans. Let's say one of the tans, like the khaki or the sand, they're so similar. I don't know why they make 2 different colors. They should add like a different brown. But so they have this light green. It's kind of an obnoxious green. So I don't like to use it as a main color. I'm not going to use it on this one because I already put that other green in. Maybe I will. We'll see. The dark green works well. Their dark brown is good, but it's really dark. And then one of the tans. You could do this paint job with just those 4 colors. Also using the Krylon brown and green as well, and you're set. If you don't want to add any of the reds or oranges, that sort of thing. But I am now going to add some dark green to really get some contrast and kind of pull it together, because right now this thing is probably looking pretty crazy. So this is a color that I'm going to do probably a little more of if I want it to be a darker rifle especially, or have a lot more contrast. And I'll come back and do a little more in a second. All right, now I'm going to use that dark brown Krylon, okay? And then once I'm done with this color, I can look at it, decide what there's too much of, what I want more of, and then go from there. But this is a nice base camo, and it's kind of crazy looking right now. I have a lot of defined color. So I'm going to hit this brown on there, and then I'm going to go back with that coyote brown, where you can do tan, whatever color you feel like it. Sometimes I'll go back with that base coat and tone things down in areas so it's not so defined everywhere, because then your randomness becomes not as random. So I want certain areas to pop, other ones to blend in, if that makes sense, or be more soft rather. All right, brown works. And you guys will get a feel for it if you're doing this pattern. You see, I'm holding these kind of close. You could hold it a little further away. That would give you way less defined shapes. Obviously, I know I'm kind of being redundant, kind of saying the same things over. But I can hold it back here, mist it if I wanted just to have a darker area, or it can be more defined like that. Again, I'd rather do two quick short passes than one heavy area. So I'd rather do something like that if I want to be really bold than on one spot. If that makes sense. All right, cool. I'm going to hit this with a heat gun real quick again. All right, this guy's one of my favorite ones to end on. I'm going to give it a shake for a second. All right. Coyote brown, I'm going to touch everything, or kind of mist everything. And this will start to add a really cool color on top. It was one of our base colors. But it's also going to tone down a lot of the dark colors I just threw on there. You guys see how easy it is, especially now that I got a bunch of colors on. I'm just hammering away. And it's spraying right at my camera. Hopefully that's not an issue. It's really random, real easy. How's that looking? Yeah, let's see. Do a quick flash cure, and then I will show you guys a little better angle of that guy. All right, so this is what we have now after doing that like kind of coyote color at the end. So I know some guys are thinking, whoa, not green enough at all. Yeah, definitely not. If I was just trying to blend in here, I would have went heavy on greens. This was just kind of to show you guys my style. Hopefully it comes across pretty well on this. I think I got most of the nooks and crannies. A little bit up under there, but I don't care about really getting in there with micro patterns. You can get in there with the cloth and then spray up in there if you have to. Within the stock, and there's a lot of nooks and crannies. All right, guys. I think I'm going to call this one done. Just kind of random. Just kind of show you guys. You don't need like 8 or 9 colors to make this paint job happen. Obviously, this one you would. But if you wanted to still use this process, just use like 4 colors. Get those Rust-Oleums. Make sure they're all the same sheen, which I recommend flat. And then go from there. And if you're not liking it, just add more. If you want to add a lot more bigger patterns to start, like again with those cardboard cutouts, or just add more two-tone from the beginning, like maybe you do that base coat of tan and then you do like half the rifle in stripes with like a dark brown, and then you can start doing this pattern between those colors, or like kind of changing it up as you go from light to dark. Again, there's no like right or wrong. This style, you can really get a lot of cool paint jobs, and they all end up very unique, and that's kind of what's fun about them. So that's why I'm going to call this guy done. I'm going to let it cure a little better. I will throw like the grip I'm going to throw on it. I'll take all the blue painter's tape off and try to get you guys a shot or pictures of it. You know, depending on how long this video ends up. I don't want to make it crazy long after this, but you guys have an idea. I'm going to be painting a second rifle today. One I already have painted. I'm going to repaint, just add some paint to it, one of my SPRs. So I'll probably try to make that another video. So stay tuned for that. I'll probably release it a few days after this or a week after this, whatever I decide to do. That one will be a little faster, more condensed. I'll just be more getting after it for you guys. I just want to see like start to finish real quick without me giving you all the tips and tricks. This video is a little longer because I really wanted to kind of give you guys that for the guys that really want to paint this for the first time. All right, guys, finished result time. So I didn't feel the need to show you on camera, but pretty much as soon as I was done with the flash cure, I go ahead and pull all that blue painter's tape off nice and carefully. I'll use an X-Acto blade if I need to help me get it off without screwing it up. And again, it's all personal preference. Just rip it off or go right to work with this thing if you want. I like to give it that day or two to cure, and that's going to have the best finish in the long run as far as not being tacky and getting rubbed off right away. But it's all up to you. If you want that look, that's cool. This is going to have a natural wear pattern as you use it. All the high spots are going to wear over time, and it's going to give it a really cool look and character to your rifle. But anyway, I just want to give you guys kind of that close-up finished look. I think it turned out awesome, especially for being random. Like that's kind of what I wanted to show you guys, was you don't have to go too crazy getting something that you're like just going nuts trying to get a specific look. Like this looks awesome. I think it turned out really, really well. So anyway, probably the easiest paint style process that you can do. You can't mess it up. And I think it turns out the best, in my opinion. That's why I do it. But if you guys have any questions on it, throw it down in the comments, or just comments in general. Anything you want clarification on, or you want me to do in the future. I know this is going to be a long video, and I apologize for that, but hopefully some of you guys got something out of that. And I did paint another rifle after this video. I painted one of my SPRs, so I'm going to try to throw that video up a little more condensed, so I'm not going to get as lost in the weeds on the process, more of just me getting right after it and talking as I go. So that video should be up maybe a week after this one, and we'll see how it is after editing. I have no idea how long this video is going to be, so we'll see. And I really appreciate you guys. Again, comments, throw them down below. Share it if you think any of your buddies want to see this. It really helps grow the channel. And hit that like button. Subscribe if you're not already. I really appreciate it. I am going to get better at this content. I promise. I'm still figuring all this out. One-man show as far as the camera and editing, all that. So I'm figuring it out. If you guys have any tips on that, let me know. And I appreciate it. If you want to support us in any other way, and one of the reasons that I'm doing a lot of this content is that my wife and I have a very small, just the two of us, business. We make these rifle slings, we make these sling retention straps, and if you want to support us like that, go over to the website. It's wingatesolutionsllc.com. Get a sling or a sling retention strap. I'll get some new stuff up on there soon, and yeah, that's how you can support us that way. If you want to head over to the Instagram, it's at Wingate Solutions on there, and that's it. I know it's already lengthy, so I appreciate you guys. Here's one more close-up. And till next time, guys, get out and train.